Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so we have this kind of funny issue here where because these are the same name, it's making it hard for me to know if it's, because watch, if I go like this and go like this and actually rebuild, it seems like, oh, that time it worked. I think it's like kind of coming back random and there's just no way to know because we have two with the same name. So that brings us to our next point of let's allow people to delete things here. So we're going to do this in sort of a pretty common UX pattern, which is like using a dismissible. So I'm going to wrap this entire list tile with a dismissible. And we want to set the dismissible to have a direction of dismissible direction dot end to start. On dismissed is a function we'll need to set up. And we also need, a dismissible needs a key. So we'll just create that by basically taking the key, and something that we know that is going to be unique is the item, is the ingredient dot ID, and we'll just set it to a string, so it has to be a string, because there can never be more than one ingredient with the same key, or with the same ID. Okay, so if we save that, we will see now that, this guy can go away, and this guy can go away, and whatever, but that's not actually doing anything. They're just kind of getting hidden out of the view, so we need to actually allow it to be deleted. But let's also add, let's wrap, and actually I think I'm going to reverse this, and I can do that just by swap with parent, because I feel like this will look a little bit better. Yeah, now it's the whole card going away. So what I want to do now is, just to make this even a little bit prettier, we're going to wrap this with a container, and we're going to put a color in it, colors.red. Let's just see how that looks. So it looks bad right now. And then we actually want to wrap this entire card with also a container. And it's going to have a color. Let's just, let's get our theme context here, theme.ofContext. I think card color. There. So now behind it, you see the red. So yay, it's a little bit nicer. And that will just, signify, hey, it's going away. Now, I don't really love that shade of red. It's a little bit too much. Maybe shade 700 or something. Cool. Okay, so let's worry about the functionality, though. So essentially, we'd want to, we already have provider, and in theory, we'd want to do something where we, pass in, the delete function or whatever. Pass in the index to a delete, similar to what we're doing when we do the checking. So let's set that up, and we'll do it in the reverse order this time. So let's make a function called delete, and it's also going to take an index async, and we'll just go final ingredient, and let's actually just copy this. I don't feel like typing it out. And for now, we're just going to print the wording, or print the ingredient itself. And yeah, so we have our delete function. So if I go and do this, we should see in the debug console that it printed out, this ingredient here. Cool. Hey, I actually never noticed that before. The true representation of these classes is actually proper JSON. That's kind of nice. I actually really like that. Okay, so what do we need to do on the server side? Well, we just need to add an endpoint. And I'm going to copy the same thing because it's going to have a lot of similarities. So we'll just call it delete. In this case, we're not going to return the ingredient. It's kind of useless. It's been deleted, so we'll just return a bool. And in this case, if there is no user ID, we'll return false. Then we want to get the ingredient in the same way, making sure they own it. And assuming it's not null, all we do now is go ingredient.delete. Where and this is where we would go we'll just use item in this case, a little bit shorter. Item.id is equal to actually we want to use this one, not the one that was passed in, because just because yeah, that would potentially cause an issue. And we just want to use this equals here. Oh man, got rid of my code. Ingredient.id. Okay, and we will return true. And at the very bottom, if it somehow gets here, meaning it was null, it will be false. Okay, let's just refresh here. So now we have a delete function, meaning in our provider now we can go await client dot client dot delete, and we want to pass in ingredient dot ID. Okay, so let's get rid of this extra grape and hope it works. I'm going to get rid of the one that's not checked. All right, and we got this error again, 400 error. What's the problem? Oh, of course, yeah, we didn't restart our server. And because that didn't work, I happen to know like this guy's going to come back, which is kind of what we want. And now let's try it again. Okay, cool. Didn't get any errors. I'm pretty confident that worked. Let's refresh. And it's gone. It's gone forever. Now, of course, we could have like, you know, a prompt to be like, are you sure you want to do this? But that is not necessary for getting this up and going. Okay, secondly, we got the delete working now. Let's allow people to rename these things. So we'll do this in the, I like the idea of switching it up and going kind of back and forth. So we'll start with the server side for this one. We're just going to have an endpoint that's specifically for renaming. And I'm going to put it here, future, and it's going to return an ingredient. If something goes wrong, it'll be null, so we'll allow that. And we're just going to call it rename. Session and int item ID and string name async. Okay, and I'm going to make these actually just to kind of show the power of this. We will actually make these fields like this. So that on client side, we actually pass them in as name parameters instead of positional parameters. Okay, same idea. I'm taking this code here, and in fact, this is so similar. I'm copying all this stuff. The difference is we want to return null here, and we want to return something else here. We'll get to that. At the very end, we want to return null. Okay, so this will make sure the user will find that one, and then what we want to do is actually just take ingredient and go .name equal to name. And then we want to go ingredient.update and update ingredient. So this is very similar to the checked one, right? We update, we want to await this, and we'll call this, oh, we don't need to do that, and we just sort of return ingredient. Make sure I didn't actually await here. We should be awaiting that before we do it, which might have caused issues. And we should also be awaiting this. Just make sure you're awaiting any database calls. They are asynchronous. Okay, so now we have the rename function. So let's go to our ingredient card. And the way I want to do this, you know, we could just put an icon, you know, beside it of like our thing, but I think it's intuitive enough that just clicking on the list tile would allow this to happen. So let's just put an on tap. Okay, and here, although I'm going to do this in kind of the rough and dirty way, just to save time, but we already kind of have most of this code, right? We want to be able to bring up a box. So I'm going to go find that. That would have been in the header, the category header. So I'm just going to literally copy this. Again, this could be done, you find a more reusable way to do this because there's so many similarities, but we're just going to paste this in here, and we're going to make sure this is async. And what we want to do is instead of saying add item, we're going to call it rename. Rename ingredient, and just where I'm at it, add. Okay, and then the most important thing here, we don't really need the hint text because it's already going to be pre-filled, right? We want to actually use the value that's already there, which we'll get to shortly, and then we want to do this, and then provider clear, then instead of creating it, this is where we would do a rename, provider dot Oh yes, our provider is going to be different too, so let's figure that out. On the ingredient provider, we need to essentially make a new function. So it's going to be pretty similar to the toggle is checked. I mean, it was pretty similar on the back end, so it's probably pretty similar on the front end, we can assume. In this case, we're passing in int of index and a string of name. So we get the ingredient, and then we actually rename it. And to rename it, we need to pass in the ingredient ID. Now remember, we decided to make this just to kind of show rename and item ID, we called it for some reason. We should probably fix that. Let's find that in the endpoints. Save that. Then back over here, ingredient ID is going to be equal to ingredient.id, and the name is going to be equal to the name that is being passed into this function. So we do that, we rename, and then we basically do that same thing where we're going to update it. We're getting the new one back, and we're going to replace it in our state list. So now back in the dashboard, in the ingredient card, we go rename. And what does our rename function take again? Provider.rename, we pass in the index, so that would be index, and we pass in ingredient name. And that will allow it to allow us to rename. But there is one sort of important thing missing, is we need to make sure that this controller has the right value in it. So before we actually show this, let's just grab our provider dot new ingredient name provider dot I think it's dot text equals, and we want to take whatever this current ingredient name is. If we didn't do that, it would just be blank and it would be hard. So here it says almond milk grapes. So I'm going to just try going grapes with some exclamation marks. I'm just going to do this while I'm thinking about it. This should be save maybe. Okay, so that didn't work, and once again, we need to restart our server. There'll be one time in this video I will remember to restart the server, and I won't be so goddamn embarrassed. Let's try it now. Grapes. So it went like that. It looks like it worked, and if we refresh, there it is. Awesome. Okay. So we have the ability to, if we're thinking of our CRUD, create. We can create. Let's get rid of this temporary thing we made. So we have the ability to create by, going into bakery and doing I want some bread. We have the ability to, the next, so in CRUD, C is for create, read is, reading. We're reading data, obviously. CRUD update, we have an update option. In fact, we have two, red, and this is also technically an update because we're updating the state of something that exists. And we have the ability to delete. So we kind of have our CRUD, obviously there's a lot more things we could do, but this is very useful and will work. Now, let's just kind of clean up a couple things here. Let's just get rid of, some things that aren't needed. Sometimes that happens. Okay, so let's go to our dashboard container, and let's actually add an app bar. And we'll just return an app bar, because this is just going to look nicer for one. Title, and let's just call it listy2. Listy 2.0. For those partly joining, the reason this is Listy2 is in a previous video a year or two ago, we created a very similar app using fast API on the back end. And when I started to learn about Serverpod, I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I think is just a great thing for the Flutter and Dart community to be able to, people can just work in a language that they are more familiar with and have this sort of full stack workflow. And I thought, why not why not just rebuild this app with using Serverpod? And that's where we're at. So there we go, List C 2.0. Now, what else do we need here? We don't really have a way to log out. We used to. The code probably exists somewhere, but it is gone now. So let's have an option in here to do that. Now, we'll get a little bit more fancy, and let's create a component to do this. So in auth, new folders, components, and we're just going to call this account dropdown.dart. And we'll just make this a stateless widget for now. Account dropdown. And we are going to make this based on our base component so that we have access to the ref. Okay, so within here, first of all, let's make sure that the user's logged in. And we can do that just by going session equals ref.read, ref.watch, session provider. This will get us access to our session object, and we can just make sure, like, if session dot is authenticated, then we'll do stuff, or maybe just we want to do it the other way. If they're not authenticated, maybe we just want to return a sized box for now, so that it doesn't actually show anything. Now, if they are logged in, we are going to not return a placeholder, but we're going to return a pop-up menu button. And I love this widget. It's so nice and so easy to work with. We'll start by, before we get to the item builder, let's just start with what it looks like when it's not open. And we'll just use a row for this. And we'll put some children in it. And we're going to have some text of session.user.username. And we know I'm using an exclamation mark really safely because I know if they're not authenticated, that would be impossible to happen. And then we're going to have as a second thing in this list, just an icon, icons.arrow dropdown, which is just that nice little triangle. And in the item builder, we need to, in here, we're never going to actually use the context, so whatever, and I'm just for now going to just return an empty list. Okay, cool. So now we have this account dropdown thing, which we are going to put as an action over here. Look at that. There's my name. It looks cool. Obviously, if someone's username is like super long, it's going to mess up everything, but I don't care about that. Okay, now what do we want to actually put in this dropdown? So we're going to, first of all, put a couple pop-up menu item, and the first one is just going to be text of maybe like my account. This would let you go and edit your settings or whatever, and it will have an on tap event. And after that, let's put in a another one that says sign out, or maybe just log out. Log out looks cleaner. Log out. And for this, we'll probably want to style it to be red. And let's just use like shade 300 for that. And let's see if that works. So now we have these cool little guys. I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's make the logout function actually work. So for this, very simply, we can just go ref.read session provider .notifier and we'll do something like sign out. Now we haven't made this yet, unless we did and I don't remember. No, we do. Yeah, we have it. Look, logout. Yeah, and this just calls the that. So there you go. We already have a logout function. It's great. Now, all that is good. Again, we could probably have a confirmation. Are you sure you want to log out? But this is such a simple app that we're not going to worry about that. So let's now log back in again. And we're back. And my account. Okay, maybe we're going to have another page. So let's figure out that. So I'm just going to close a bunch of things. And in auth, let's make a new folder called screens. Oh, we already have a screens folder. let's call this like account screen dot dart. Okay, and let's just make, let's start with a stateless widget called account screen, which just saves us some typing. And this is actually going to inherit base screen. And we want to just override the body of our base screen. As a reminder, base screen is kind of this helper class that we have so that we don't have to keep making scaffolds and stuff, and can just work with this. And it already inherits consumer widget, so we have access to ref for Serverpod. Okay, and here, let's for now just return text. Hey, wrap it in center. Get rid of this const because it won't be that anyways. Okay, so now we have, you know, currently we've had two screens. One's just the auth screen, one's the like this screen that we're looking at right now. But now we're trying to get a little more complex. We're going to have, you know, perhaps a third screen. So let's just figure out how we want to deal with that. So first of all, let's go to our main.dart. And currently we're just saying, okay, we're going to use the app container. Okay, sure. And that is all fine. But what we're actually going to do now is get rid of the home. And we're going to set up some routes. So routes, and routes is just a map. So we would have something like, you know, / here. And it has like a builder function where we go like this, and we do want to use this like app container as our sort of main route. But now we're going to allow something called maybe like /account, and we will call this, this will be now that account screen, and we will just rebuild. And am I missing one thing? App container. There we go, we're back. Okay, also what I want to do is we're just going to create a static const called route name, and we'll just call it account. And the reason for this is using strings in your app when you have to have it in more than one spot leads to problems. So now we can actually just go account screen.route name as the key of this map. And then that way, when we click this, which we're going to do right now, account drop down, we can basically go navigator.ofcontext.push named, and we can just go account screen.route name, right? Instead of typing in the word account twice, we have this like nice constant now. Okay, cool. Also keep in mind, like on most projects, I do usually use, I pretty much exclusively use AutoRoute. It's a great package. But it's out of the scope of what we're trying to do here and not really necessary, so we're just using the built-in navigator stuff. Okay, now check this out. You would think if I click this, it would bring me to that page. Like everything seems right, and in fact, like if I was maybe I'm just gonna return like an elevated button pressed, and let's just do this here. Just to prove my point, test. So, look, see, that brought me there. Why the heck is it not working when I have it within a pop-up menu? And I remember fiddling with this for a while and being like, what is going on here? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I was like, oh, maybe it's because the context is not the right one. I should be using this context. Like, it was a nightmare. But I realized it's because when you tap a pop-up menu item, it calls a navigator.ofcontext.pop simply to close this menu. Therefore, we're actually pushing and popping within like probably a millisecond, and we're not going anywhere. So the couple workarounds here, you can, this does have an option where you can do it on selected, which takes the index of whatever one, and you can have some case to be like, if 0, go here, if that, and that will solve it. But it's a little bit annoying because then like you got to track the indexes. The real easy solution here is just go future.delayed a duration, and let's just do like a milliseconds of like 100. Then and we just move this guy up in here and go like this. We don't really even need this guy here, and this can just be a normal function. So this will delay, won't call this for 100 milliseconds or whatever, which is more than enough time for this thing to get popped, and then we are there. So there, yay. Just if you're ever dealing with the pop-up button and you're wondering why it's not allowing you to navigate anywhere, that's probably why. Okay, lastly for I think this part of this video, let's make the screen a little bit better here. So first of all, let's add a app bar, so we can do that. Again, that's just part of our base screen component. And we just return an app bar, title, text, and we want this to say like my account. Sure. And now if we go here, the good thing about having the app bar is obviously like, cool, it looks pretty, but also now we automatically get this leading button, which is the main reason I wanted to put in there. Then in here, we'll probably use a list view for our view, and this won't be a builder because we're not going to work with dynamic data, but we're probably going to have some like list tiles in here. One, for instance, title, text, log out maybe. We have a trailing icons dot chevron right. Misclick there. Oops. And maybe we want to wrap this whole list tile in a pretty card. So we get this nice little, thing here. And this obviously a couple things, like we would want an on tap event within the list tile. On tap, and this is where we could use our ref.read session .notifier.logout. That would allow us to log out. I'm not going to click it though. I'm just going to kind of do that. We'd also probably with this, and can you style the icon color colors.red shade 300 maybe. Cool. Is there also like title color? What other color things do we have? That's annoying. Colors.red.shade 700. Cool. And then maybe we also have a leading icons dot logout, I think is one. Logout. Yay. So now we can click that. I'm not loving this shade though. Maybe. Yeah, that's fine with me. Cool, so we have that. And then I'm just going to copy this whole card and just remove a couple things about it. We don't actually need the color for this. We won't need that. And we won't need this. And this will just maybe person or something. Save that. Avatar. Okay, so for the next video, if you're watching and you're like, this app is, you don't need an avatar, it's not a social app. I know. The reason we're going to put in this idea of an avatar is just to show how we can deal with image uploading and media stuff, which is something that that is a powerful feature that Serverpod supports. We'll be setting up an S3 to store it on and let Serverpod do all the stuff in between. So we're going to let people upload their avatars, and this will obviously be their photo, and there'll be a way to choose it and everything like that. So we'll catch you in the next one, and we can get some photos going.